Un cimitir. Nimeni nu se mai ferește să spună că asta a ajuns Marea Mediterană. Peste 1700 de imigranți și-au pierdut viața în primele 4 luni ale anului încercând să scape de război, de sărăcie și de persecuții. Un număr record care a expus vulnerabilitatea comunității internaționale la o tragedie fără precedent în ultimele decenii. La fiecare 10 morți, 8 și-au pierdut viața în Mediterană și tot atâți vin din Africa. Iar pentru cei care supraviețuiesc, nu avem destui bani, destul loc, destulă voință politică sau socială pentru a le oferi ceea ce și-au dorit când au urcat în acele bărci, adică o viață mai bună. Dar Mediterana nu este singurul loc al unor tragedii fără pereche în istoria recentă, este doar cel mai apropiat de noi și poate de aceea ne șochează cel mai mult. Kenya și Al-Shabaab, Nigeria și Boko Haram, Irak și statul islamic. Cum arată situația cu adevărat în aceste locuri? Există vreo speranță de pace? Gândul a avut ocazia să intervieveze unul dintre cei mai mari mediatori mondiali din zone de conflict. Este vorba despre Prabha Sankaranarayan, președinta organizației Mediatori Fără Frontiere, care a venit la București pentru un congres internațional de pace. Before this unprecedented spike in the number of migrant deaths in the Mediterranean, there was another shocking reminder of how dire the situation really is in Africa right now, and I'm referring to the massacre at the University of Garissa in Kenya, perpetrated by Al-Shabaab fighters. I know you had just returned from Kenya when this tragedy took place, and I want to ask you what your initial reaction was when you first found out.
Reaction was to contact the people that we had just left behind to make sure they were okay.
Were they?
Most of them, yes. They were, because we work in the pastoralist communities in Laikipia County, which is not in Mombasa or near Garissa. But many of them had families, friends, cousins who went to the university there. And some of them, 2 people we know, lost a family member. And these are also people who are doing the work to counter radicalization in that part of the country. You know, the countering violent extremism, countering radicalization has become the thing that we talk about in the peace-building world now, in the aid world now. And it's that particular conversation is probably 10 years in the making. So we're now spending a lot of money, and I'm hoping, and I'm glad, that the EU is thinking about doing that, USAID is, DFID is, the large multilateral organizations are thinking about focusing on not just what happens after, but how do we prevent it. So there is an increased focus, which I think is a wise one. How do we prevent it from getting to the point where large communities are radicalized? So the effort in places like Mombasa now, in places in Kenya, are about countering the radicalization in the communities. How do you build resilient communities is what we are focusing on, so that we don't have to deal with the images of the Garissa, so that we don't have to deal with the images of Westgate. 2 years ago, one of our members had his brother in that mall. He's a tribal chief who used to be a warrior also, and he was supposed to participate in the conference in Istanbul. And we got a call saying, I'm not getting on that flight, because that was when Westgate Mall was bombed, and his brother was in the mall. And he said, I'm not leaving Kenya, I'm not leaving Nairobi till I find my brother. So we waited, and we waited, and we waited. Fortunately, he rescued him. He went into Westgate and rescued him. That
he
is
went
not to
into
say
the
he
mall?
did. He did. You have to know Lantano to understand why he would do something like that. This is after the police and the security had started securing the building. But he had worked in the community long enough to have the kind of relationships that allowed him to do what he did. And then he came back on that flight and talked to us about what he had experienced, what he had witnessed. And all it did for him was make his commitment to what he was doing even deeper. So in Kenya, the pastoralists, who are neighbors of what happened in Garissa, right, have had a history of conflicts. It hasn't helped that the arms trading in the porous boundaries, Somalia, Ethiopia, have made it very possible for small arms trading to thrive there. So Lantano's vision is, I want to stop the fighting amongst the tribes. So come and help us build peace in the Rift Valley. And so what he's doing is building on the peace caravans that they started. So we see the kind of work that they are doing. The pastoralists have developed a peace caravan method that is extraordinarily effective. For 4 years now, they have stopped the cattle rustling. They have started going to schools in which people from across different tribes go to schools. For 4 years now, the elders in the community have made what used to be a customary practice disallowed. So the youth no longer engage in the kind of practices that they used to. And what they know is that it's not enough for there to be an island of peace, that if they're neighbors, this is a microcosm of what we are seeing globally. So if Laikipia County is at peace, it's not enough. Baringo, Isiolo, and then the next county, and then the next county, also needs to be at peace so that their borders are not violated by the violence spreading.
Since you have the experience there of trying to counter radicalization, tell me how visible was for you yourself or the organization, how visible was the presence of Al-Shabaab in Kenya? How visible is it? Because I've heard I've read a lot of reports saying that it's really not that visible. But then you would have a Westgate, and you would have an embassy attack or Garissa.
For people who live in those communities and who every day live with their children being kidnapped, it is a very visible presence. For those who are not directly impacted, it may not be. But we have a slightly skewed perspective because we are largely working with people who are trying to build the peace in these communities. So they are very sensitive to what is going on, not just at the surface, but below the surface. So in parts of Kenya, it is really critical to build the resilience of communities. And by resilience of communities, I'm talking about building the capacity of communities to respond to efforts at radicalization by strengthening their ability to hold on to and to build their community connections. So when communities are connected, they are much safer than communities in which people are isolated. So the presence in the eastern part is much stronger, but the presence of But the knowledge of their activities is fairly well known among those who are working in the peace-building community. So it's not that quiet. And now I think there is a great focus because Kenya is seen as a great gateway, and that if we don't do what we need to do to stop the spread of the radicalization in Kenya, then we're going to see it spread even more.
Then let me come now with a question that goes beyond the usual headlines. I'm curious to know how it is for you to work with African communities which have known war and sufferance and in its worst forms. Where do they take their joy from?
From some of the same things that we all take joy from family, from faith, from hugging their children. You know, I think what happens is that because we see one slice of life in these countries, and it's not just Africa, we work in Asia, we work in South America, we work in the US. It's not like the developed countries don't have their own sets of issues. It's a great question, because what I want people to know is that in each of these contexts, people take joy in the same things that you and I take joy in. I have the luxury of going back to a home that is not having bombs dropped on it every day. They don't. But despite that, they smile, they laugh, they hold on to hope, and they continue to do the work. That is what inspires those of us who do this work. So these are women who will say, if we don't smile, how will our children learn to smile? Can you imagine meeting women like that who are working with the bombs dropping on Aleppo every day? They are running out to hold peace circles, and they smile because they have talked to one more child. They have talked to one more adult about what democracy can look like, what peace can look like. That if they don't take the responsibility to hold on to that vision, how will their children know is what they are fighting for? So what do they laugh and cry about? Some of the same things we do. And they do it despite the circumstances in which they live. To me, that's a testament to the human spirit. That's what motivates me to continue to do the work.